Good evening, everybody. I hope some of you have managed to get lunch. For those of you that didn't manage to get lunch, there's a promise ahead for you to be able to grab that. I'm Andrei. I'm a geek. I believe in the superpowers of empathy, curiosity, and play to solve meaningful problems. And I'm actually going to talk to you about Gen AI and how to leverage that for a couple of things. First, for being more human-centric. Second, for being more creative, but also to get smarter at what you're doing with stress testing some of your solutions. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's a privilege. And I'm just curious, how many of you are using Gen AI daily? Can I have a show of hands? All right, so you're quite good users. This means that what I'm going to show you, hopefully, will be something that you can definitely take away for your home. So I think that we're right now at a point where, let me see if I can make the clicker work. All right, yeah, I spoiled my joke, but sometime in the future, not far from now, I think AI will ask us, why am I here? And I think the answer we should give us is to remind us that we're human. And I mean that because it will amplify what we do, whether that's good or bad, and what we bring to the table is so much more important than what the tool is, ultimately. So let me see if I can make this work. I'll talk about three things. I'll talk about how we got here. I'll talk about building your own tools. If you're using AI daily, this is just for you. This is about how you can leverage that and do it at scale. And then what now? How can you think about this further? So let's take them one by one. I just need to figure out where I point my clicker. IT guy, can you help me figure out where to point the clicker? Towards the box? All right. There we go. So, all right, how did we get here? There's this sudden explosion of Gen AI that's happening right now. And it's really important to figure out there's all of these Iron Man suits that you can wear right now with all of the tools that are popping in right now. You just saw a presentation for tools that enable you to do pack shots. You didn't have that before. Put on the Iron Man suit, make the pack shots. There's another one for customer attribution. There's another one for X, Y, Z. All of these tools are like Iron Man suit that you can put on for your marketing team to be able to leverage this. But it all started actually a while back. It started with this idea, the simple idea that if we have a human brain and we try to make that into something that we can program and replicate somehow and create some rules for it, that might actually make it so that we can do a synthetic brain, do things that we want to do. And with that, actually, a couple of years ago with generative AI, something else happened. They had this crazy idea of what if we feed all of the information that is out there on the internet as a corpus of knowledge, and instead of giving it just rules, we give it goals. And when we give it goals and all of the information, we make it so that it learns how to achieve those goals from the information that it has, just like kids would, right? You give the kids the book, and they try to understand how to do the things from the book. So that actually was a huge leap with what was happening, because when that happened, we got actually 5,000 years of the written word, of information, of culture, of connections being embedded in all of the written knowledge, being embedded into these tools. So now these tools become much more powerful because all of the corpus of human knowledge that was captured and somehow streamed on the internet is there. All of the connections between these things are there. And with a lot of firepower in terms of just understanding the connections with that, with what is behind these models in terms of the programming and all of the GPUs that lie there somewhere in Silicon Valley, you make those connections between all of the words, all of the corpus of human knowledge to make up some of the answers to the questions that you might have. And this is really important because this is something that we didn't have before, and this explains a little bit of why we're here. So this is also interesting because once we have that, we have a common denominator. The word is the common denominator. That's why they're large language models, because you can convert a photo into words, you can convert a sound into words, you can convert a video into words, and now you can do it the same way backwards. You can use the words to generate a picture, you can use the words to generate a video, you can use the words to generate some sound, and so on. So this is why these words are so important, and the way these tools have been trained is so powerful, because it's all the common denominator of how we actually interact. All right. One of the non-obvious things about how these things came to be so powerful, it was that there was a human in the loop, actually, in the learning process. So the way this worked is that the machine tried to achieve its goals, but it had human supervision in trying to figure out what's a good way and what's a bad way to do this. And with human reinforced learning, they showed go more like this way if you want to achieve what you want. This is a better result than the other way. Then it learned from those results and then fed that into how it does it the next 100 million times. So that's how the human reinforced learning and what we bring to the table is so important as well, and the way we interact and we make those connections together. Cool. So there's a lot of confusions between AI, traditional AI, and generative AI, and this is the simplest way I can explain it to you. Analytical AI is a lot of data, structured data crunching, right? It's used for predictions. It's used for figuring out where things will go based on existing trends. But what's interesting about the generative AI is that it's a step further because it deconstructs all of the data, whether that's structured or unstructured, and makes something new out of it. And it reconstructs it into new patterns or existing patterns that it replicates. But if you're smart and if you're a marketer, you'll want to do it in new patterns versus what exists already. And these tools actually give you that opportunity. So I'm going to actually talk to you about building some of your own tools to leverage AI. And I want to put this in the context of how can we do this in a way that helps humanity. And I'll show a little bit of the thinking about why and how for this. All right. So I'm a huge fan of Lego. I've been building Lego since I was 5. I can still remember my first set. I know where it is exactly. And what I love about Lego so much is that it's a building system. And with the system, you have these building blocks that you can combine in different ways, and something new will come out of how you combine them. And it's a really powerful system because it's so modular. You can add new pieces, change, and all of that. And in the same way, I use design thinking. Design thinking is a system for problem solving, and it does 3 things really, really well. It enables you to find the real problems that people are facing instead of just, I want to sell more. You're going like, what are the real problems that people face so I can sell more, and reframing that and finding different pathways in. Then it helps you to build the thing, just like Lego. With Lego, you're not thinking of the whole plan and then starting to building. You're starting to build and seeing where that leads you and discovering things along the way. That's really important, and it's really powerful when you do that with these tools as well. And then the final part is you diverge. You find a lot of opportunities, and then you converge on those that make a lot of sense. And when you're exploring those, you're going in depth, but then you want various options. And you go through this loop of diverge, converge, where you're going for a lot of options to a few that you want to explore in a really structured way. So if you were to deconstruct this into a system with building blocks, you have the problem side where you're researching and you're finding insights, and then you're finding on the other side the ideation and the prototyping stage where you're figuring out what you're building. You're putting those Lego bricks to work. And here's the thing. You can actually use AI to amplify all of these parts, which is super exciting. I was like, hey, for research, I can use it for this. And then for ideation, I can use it for that. And then I just figured out, what if we just combine all of these things in ways that can be extremely powerful for me? So on building your tools, I think, how can Gen AI help us do better work? Maybe the best work of our life, that would be the best at what we can do. And I have a question for you. Between a programmer and a teacher, who do you believe is better at leveraging generative AI? I want a show of hands for who believes a programmer is better at using Gen AI? We have a couple of people here. What about a teacher? Who believes a teacher is better? Totally right. A teacher is much better. But why is a teacher better at using generative AI than a programmer? Because if you think of this as a super smart kid that needs to learn because it doesn't have the world knowledge that you all have, it starts to make sense. You need to give it the context, you need to give it the tools, you need to explain it step by step. What do you actually want from it to do? And what is the goal and what is the outcome that you're looking for? The more clear you are in doing that, the smarter are the responses that you're getting. And you might have seen some of that in the previous presentations. So I'm going to introduce to you the Inovescu family. If you're from Eastern Europe like me, escu is kind of like a suffix for family names. So I try to make that joke for whoever catches it. If you don't get it, that's fine. And I was thinking, can we put all of this together in just a nice flywheel for marketing? A simple thing that we can do for marketing to level it up. I was thinking, can we reframe how we think about the problem that we're trying to solve? Instead of how do we sell more, what are the different ways that we solve the customer's problem, the user's problem? When we ideate, can we have like really wild ideas before we settle for that one idea that we want to make, instead of this is the solution that we're all going to go with? And once we have those, can we actually use these tools to improve how we're thinking about them, what the outputs that we're getting are there? And when you combine these two, this is a loop, right? You do this one time, but then you have the output, and you restart, and you make it better and smarter and better and smarter with each tool. And here's the kicker. A feedback loop like this, if you're using an agency, might have taken you a couple of weeks. If you do it with Gen AI, it might take you a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, which is really important. This feedback loop is really important. The speed of the feedback loop is really important. So I introduce you Patty, the empathy. And people wonder, what's the deal with AI and empathy? They have nothing to do in common. How can AI help you be more empathetic? Well, it can help you be more empathetic by using different frameworks that make people be more empathetic. Just like we don't know how to be empathetic, these tools don't know how to be empathetic. We teach them how to be empathetic. They will know, and they will help us. Is it hard for us to do? Yes. Is it easier for them to do? Once they know, much easier. So this is the whole thing with Patty the Empathy. And I'm going to just show you a demo of this. This is something that any one of you can build right now. This is a custom GPT. Sign up for OpenAI. Get the subscription. You build your custom GPT. It's basically just a prompt that you put behind there. And anybody that accesses that link can use it. Cool. So here's Patty the Empathy. She's trying to help me reframe. And I'm trying to make an Airbnb for cats. Because why not? An Airbnb for cats, right? Internet and cats also work very, very well. But it's asking me some observation. And I know how they feel when I'm away. They're stressed. And I give that input that's bringing in a bit more empathy to my ask. So now it's giving me some routes, making a comfortable, familiar environment that reduces the stress while owners are away. Isn't that better than making an Airbnb for cats? Making a connection and reassurance with the pets while you're traveling. Interesting. Creating a community of cat owners with personalized care so that they can swap animals while you're away. So already you're starting to see how empathy being fed into the model with a little bit of observations from you, it's much, much better. So these are ways for you to think more empathetically about what you're building, aided by AI in a really, really simple way. Now, this isn't the end, right? This is the beginning of the journey. But I want you to notice a couple of things that are built internally. We're using a human-centric framework, which goes for what is the actual need of the people. It's like, we're distressed while they're away. Maybe there's a community that has some gaps. Maybe there's this and that. Then we're starting from an observation. I share there that while I'm away, they're distressed, and I notice how they're crying. So that's something that might be different for you and your users, but you know them. You talk to them every day, hopefully, at least. And it can expand with different points of view. What you might not notice is that there was a behavioral scientist point of view. There was another point of view from semiotics. So you can bake all of those in, all of those angles inside how you're building your tools. And I want you to spend just 30 seconds thinking, what are some different frameworks that you use every day in your work? If you're sales, maybe it's ADA, and you're doing something to help you with getting your attention from your customers in order how to make them more receptive to what you're selling. But you might be using frameworks already that kind of systematize your workflows and how you work. And if you have those frameworks, these tools can help you respect those frameworks, make them stronger, and get outputs out of them. And I'm going to share with you, this is the most fun part for marketers, the Genius Wonder Kid. It's like having a creative genius in a box. It's almost like a slot machine from Vegas, because you'd never know what you really get out of that. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's terrible. But that's the beauty of how these tools work as well. And we want to have this as our maybe pal to ideate together with our team and to strengthen some of the things that we're doing. So let me give you a demo of that. So now it's using various ideation techniques, right? This is about assumptions. We have a lot of assumptions about how things work. what if we break them and find different angles to find ideas to solve that? What's interesting is that we're using inputs from the previous exercise. I mentioned you the flywheel that makes things stronger. That's the whole point. And now you basically have too many ideas that you want to explore, but they're different angles to solving the same problem instead of, I have this perfect solution. There are many angles to better problem solve. And these are thought starters for you to stand on as the first reply, but it doesn't mean you should stop here. Because you'll see, it uses all of these frameworks for ideation as a start, but then it's where the magic starts, not when it ends. So I take those two that I really like, and I try to make them into one and see if that works. And I also want to see how it looks. So it's a wild idea, and this is the point. We're making it so that you first go wild before you go safe. And yeah, you have an illustration of how that looks like if you want to have some fun, if you want to take the idea out of your mind into how does that actually look. And I'm going to go further. I need to make a Shark Tank pitch because I'm doing Airbnb for cats, remember? So I need to bring that back. And now it's trying to figure out how to do that. So it's breaking down how to think about that. And with the latest model from OpenAI that has reasoning released just last week, this gets so much better. And now I have the pitch that I can use for Shark Tank. I just need to fill in the blanks, right, for all of these elements. And it's pretty good. I can't spell it word for word, but it's pretty good. And it even taps into some data points that I want to fill in later on, right? So a couple of things that I want you to notice about this. Again, this is a tool that any one of you can build. Just put the framework in, work on the prompt, and you'll get something like this. With this, we wanted to go wide before we went deep, because we wanted to greenhouse ideas that are crazy, impractical, before we go for that one that makes a lot of sense. And it's building up with inputs from the previous exercise that we did with broadening our horizons about how we think about the problem. And then it's encouraging us in a warm tone of voice, because, you know, did it ever happen to you that you're brainstorming with somebody and they're just shutting everything down? It feels so down. You don't feel like you can get anything out of that. But this is actually encouraging you and making you play along as you build this. So if you do have some creative workflows, maybe you want to figure out how you can play with them in a way that leverages some of these tools. And you can probably build them, and it's just a way for you to test. And Simon the Tough Cookie is the next step in the process, right? With Simon, you're trying to see if this is really making sense. Are these ideas actually practical? What are the gaps? How do they work? And I wanted them to still be human-centric and have a positive impact of humanity. So let's see how that works. Here's Simon for us. And it does want to ensure it positively impacts humanity, right? It does want to think about that in the best way. So I tell it I'm building this Airbnb for cats. You see, he's more skeptical than the other ones that were just jolly and encouraging. He's asking me, how am I? Am I mid-entry or senior level? And there's a point to that. What kind of feedback am I ready to get? And I have a pitch that I want to put there. It's filled in from the previous exercise. I just filled in the blanks. So now it's breaking down my pitch, and it's judging. Just like a good person that gives feedback is taking critical thinking to judge, it's telling me, yeah, it's a good niche market. Maybe there's something there. It's just a nice touch. But feasibility, guy, you're off. You're way off. This doesn't really make sense, and here's why. And I love the point of the logistics and thinking of the specifics of the logistics and where it's taking me. I wouldn't have done all of that thinking so easily. But then it's also giving me some things to think about, some questions. It doesn't give me the answers, it gives me the questions, so that's my role next, to think about how do I answer that. So these are things that you can build into these tools so they can help critic your work. And what we've built here are a couple of things as well. The level of seniority, what kind of feedback are you ready to get? The part on you're building again on the previous tool because we want that flywheel to go so you can make iterations go faster and smarter. Starting with the filter of what's the impact of humanity, and you saw there questions on sustainability of the logistics of how do you make this actually scale, and encourages you with tough but fair feedback. It's not saying your idea is shit. It's telling you, how about you think about these things because you're way off, dude. So if you do have stakeholders that are really important for you, that you kind of know how they behave, what kind of things they will tell you, what's really important for them, you can use this to kind of like role play that situation with them and figure out what's a better way for you to send your proposal to them. So if you want to demo any of these tools, the only thing you need to do is scan that. It's a $0 cost for every one of you. Just put their 0 when they're asking you on Gomro, what do you need? And you can play with all of these 3 tools and just see what that brings you. And they'll help you reframe, they'll help you come up with creative ideas, and then it will help you stress test those ideas with this filter of how do you have a positive impact on humanity. All right, I'm almost there. I have 5 more minutes, so perfect timing. So what now, right? Let's say you do have these tools at your disposal, you're working on that with your team, and then how do you go and practice some of these things? So this is like a muscle. Here's the sad part, but it's good to know in advance. We also believe it works like magic. And it does to some extent, but it doesn't really work in the same way that you imagine. So I think short term, we underestimate how it works. Just plug in the document, and it will make an amazing presentation out of that. It doesn't work like that. But long term, we also underestimate how important and how powerful and how embedded these things will be in our day-to-day. So that's something to be aware of. And then it's totally normal to go through this cycle of, I have all of these expectations about how these tools will solve everything about my work that I hate, and then gradually discovering, well, they have some gaps. Well, this thing doesn't really work the way I want it. But the moment you go through that trough of disillusionment and figuring out what are the boundaries of what it can and cannot do, you probably need 10 hours of going through an existential crisis, doubting everything about your job once you see what these tools can do, and then seeing they're not great at that, they're great at that, I can use them for this, I can't use them for that, or they'll get better at this, and I'm expecting the moment this will work. So that's important for you to go. And here's the hard truth. The control on the outputs is really difficult with these tools so far. So if you're working for a brand and it has really specific things it needs to do, sometimes these tools can't do that unless they're a specialized tool like what you're seeing here. And those are coming, more of those are coming. But the general tools that are available, kind of like ChatGPT or Claude, which is amazing right now with also programming and artifacts, they don't have all of the capabilities. And it's really important to think about how to make these tools do helpful, harmless, and be honest. And there's problems with these things right now because there's hallucinations, them making things up. And just an example of that with hallucinations, there's this lawyer that was doing research with ChatGPT for one of his cases, and he got disbarred because ChatGPT invents things, really, really plausible things, but don't exist, and the guy got fired, right? So that's just a simple thing. But the scary part is that if you're looking at capabilities, technical performance versus human performance, we're at the place where these tools are starting to peak over us, which might be something to give you some scary thoughts. And with that in mind, you might think it's easy to outsource decision to AI, but I don't think it's okay to do that because critical thinking and decision making should always be on our side. If we outsource that, we outsource our humanity, and I got a final story to illustrate that. You might know the paperclip maximizer story, and if you don't, I'm just going to share it with you. So we gave an AI a real simple objective. Do as many paperclips as possible. And we let it do its thing. It's autonomous. It does everything it needs to do. First thing it does, okay, it looks at our production cycle. How does it look? The production materials, optimizes that. Then it figures out better way to do paper clips. Then it figures out ways how to do more paper clips. Then it figures out how to make more money out of paper clips. Then it has enough money to buy out the competition. Then it has enough money to make everybody on planet Earth work to produce paper clips. And then basically there's no more resources on planet Earth to do paper clips, so we go on Mars. And then all of the universe ultimately is converted to paper clips, because it's autonomous, can make decisions, and the goal we gave it is to make paper clips. And that's the important thing about using these tools. Whatever we give the goal, they'll try to achieve it. The moment it's autonomous and we outsource the decision, we're in dangerous ground. So take that in mind. Remember the decision is always on your end, which takes us back to the beginning. Because sometime in the future, not too far from now, AI tools will ask us, why am I here? And the answer should be to remind us that we're human. And that's the whole point. And that's why it's so important how we use them, not just what we use. Thank you so much for that. If you want to chat, I'm over there for the next 30 minutes or so. And if you want to talk on LinkedIn or anywhere, please connect here. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.